Council's Planning Committee. I think we'll start with an introduction to everybody around the table. If we can start with Councillor Castle on my left.
Councillor Castle, City Councillor for Long Levens and Vice Chair of Planning.
Claire Haslam, Planning Development Manager for the City Council.
Caroline Townley, Principal Planning Officer in Development Management.
Matthew Jopp, Highways Development Management at Gloucestershire County Council.
Hi, Andy Hearn, Head of Place at Gloucester City Council.
Hello, I'm Andrew Gravels, I'm a councillor for Abbeydale, and tonight I'm subbing for Councillor Stephanie Chambers, who is away from Gloucester.
Councillor Readold from Hucklecote.
Councillor Karen James from Kingsway, substituting for Rosanna Marshall, who's currently on maternity leave.
Councillor Andy Lewis, Quedgley Samvale.
Councillor John Jones for Kingsway.
Councillor Liam Harris for Quedgley Samvale.
Councillor Sponheimer for Butler Tedworth.
Oliver Brown, Democratic and Electoral Services Officer.
Michael Ronan, Locum Planning Lawyer.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will be available for 4 years, and if you're present in the chamber, you are consenting to appearing in the recording and the broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. To our guests in the gallery, if you've registered as a speaker on one of the substantive items, you are also consenting to the use of sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. When we reach the public speaking item, a section of the item, I will call you forward and ask you to make your 5-minute representation. I'll now run down the agenda in item order. We've already had apologies, but just to reiterate, Councillor Alastair Chambers, Councillor Stephanie Chambers and Councillor Rosanna Marshall are subbed by Councillor Bell, Councillor Gravels and Councillor James. Oh, sorry. Councillor. Okay, thank you. Who's subbing for Bell?
No, subbing for Alastair.
Okay. So declarations of interest. Do any members present have any declarations of interest which they wish to make? I believe that members may have received an email from a staff member of Gloucester City Homes. Can members indicate if they have received this so that we can discuss it for the sake of transparency? Councillor Wiederhold, Councillor Jones, Councillor James, Councillor Lewis, Councillor Harris, Councillor Castle, Councillor Balmier, and I also saw it by default.
Sorry? Was that sent to you as well? Was that sent to members as well? Chair, thank you very much. I think that relates to the first application of Podsmead. I also understand that in relation to the second application, there was a planning brief forwarded by the applicant to members and to the planning manager, just for transparency, that all members, I understand, have received that. In accordance with the Constitution, members are right to declare it at the meeting and to forward it to the planning manager. And as there have been no declarations from members in relation to that, can members just confirm by a show of hands that they've kept an open mind in determining the applications, please? No, let's just deal with this first, and then I'll answer you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for confirming. Everyone has an open mind to consider the applications.
So I lose everything, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So
I'll say I did, but I probably didn't. Get what I mean? Because I can't even get into it. That's why I got hard copies, but thank you. So if you want to make it good, just say yes.
Thank you, Councillor Tracy. Next item is, Councillor Gravels.
My hand up because I was advised to declare an interest, being the cabinet member for housing a long time ago, and I don't believe I have any issues around predetermination. It was an issue of getting the whole scheme up and running. I don't recall it seeing any plans whatsoever, so that's why I'm making this statement as advised by the legal people. That's clear. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item is the minutes. Has everybody seen the minutes, and does everybody agree that it's a true record? Councillor Wiederhold?
Can the record show that I was present at that meeting, please? Well, I spoke at point 46.4, so I was clearly there.
Councillor James?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was also present at that meeting and spoke, but I'm not present in the... So I have reported that, so thank you.
Next, we come to item 4, late material. Have members had a chance to read everything during the course of today? I think it came in a couple of emails. Everybody happy that there's... We're ready to proceed. The first discussion is the planning application for Podsmead regeneration project. May I ask the Principal Planning Officer to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. This is an application, full application for the demolition of existing buildings and structure and the development to provide 172 residential units, some premises for commercial retail units, improvements to the public realm, including public open space, and associated infrastructure, including drainage, access roads, highways improvements and parking. It involves the demolition of 64 existing residential units, so there'll be a net increase of 108 units. Before we start, we have got some late material. I'm not going to go through it, just let you know that it includes the consultee response from our tree officer. While they're referred to in the body of the report, their comments weren't explicitly in the consultee section. There's also another letter from the County Council in terms of an objection about the lack of any contribution towards education and library facilities. Their original comments are in the report. And then we've had 2 letters from members of the public, one from the person who runs the local shop in Podsmead and another one from a resident in Byron Avenue. There's also an update to condition 2, which is the condition that sets out the approved drawings if members resolve to grant planning permission. That's just updated to reflect the latest drawings that we have on our website. Okay, in terms of the site location, You can see on the screen the red line. Along its southern avenue, it's bordered by Cole Avenue. To the west, there's the industrial estate access from Bristol Road. We've got Podsmead Road to the east with Crypt School. I'm sure members will know where we are. Crypt School, Gloucester Athletics Club, the Laburnum Housing Estate and Tuffley Park. And to the north, we've got Shakespeare Avenue and Betchamin Close. This is the site identification plan. You should have it appended to your report because we go through site by site, so it's quite useful, which is why it was for an appendice. There's a lot of information, so I'm just going to run through site by site what's proposed fairly briefly, and obviously happy to take questions or go back as required. So this is the proposed site layout plan. It relates to the various phases, and you'll see at the bottom, this is where the commercial units are. This is your focal building as you come into this estate, with a plaza to the front, houses behind, the retained public open space. I've got detailed slides, so I'll go through them there, and new housing. Sorry, my laptop's just gone off. New housing in the various other sections, but we'll go through site by site in a moment. This is the site-wide landscaping plan, so you can see sort of the green areas, and again, we'll go through the various parts of the public open space in a moment. That's just for context. This is the tree species strategy. So you'll see in the report that we are losing 33 trees out of the 78 trees within the site at the moment, and it's proposed to plant another 229 trees, which equates to a replacement value of 1 in 8. That's in section 6.89 of your report. Just to show you on here, the blue dots, they're street trees, including field maple, silver birch, hornbeam, cherry, pear and rowan. The green are avenue trees, if you can see that on the thing, and then we have the parkland trees as well. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but this just gives you details of the bin store locations. If you can see, it's not very clear, but if you can see the orange areas, they're the communal bin storage areas for all the flatted blocks. The blue areas are the refuse stores for the retail units, so they're just in this location here. And then the green are the refuse areas for the houses, and we'll come on to that in a moment. Because some of the houses have them out the front, they have a dedicated bin storage area, and if not, they're in the rear. So we just go through in a bit more detail the various sites. Sites 1 and 2 include the new apartment block with the commercial uses on the ground floor, and then 3 stories above with the flats. And then we have a row of houses, a block sort of arrangement of houses. And then this is the retained area of public open space. So that's sites 1 and 2. These are just some photographs of the existing public open space on a very nice sunny afternoon. And then we've just got some elevations, so I'll just show you these. This is the elevation, the front elevation, so that would be as you're coming from Cole Avenue, coming into the Podsmead site. And then we've got the elevations, the north elevation and the south facing elevation. And then we've just got some detail in here. This is sort of the bay study, so it's just giving you a little bit of detailing and showing you the inset balconies and some of the brick detailing and use of different materials. In terms of the landscaping, this is the area that will be retained. So we've got a replacement mugger and an outdoor fitness area. There'll be a covered shelter for teenagers in that area as well. We've also got a relocated memorial and sensory garden, and that will include relocated remembrance facilities associated with a former Podsmead resident. And we've got a new play area in this area here. That's just a detail of the mugger. More detail. And there's the proposed play site. Site 3. So this is the site sort of to the bottom left, really, if you like. This is Byron Avenue here and Shakespeare Road coming down here. So it's just showing you, this is the redevelopment, so these will all be houses in this area, so that there'll be demolition going there. These are some photographs of the site as is. They're the apartment blocks that are on the site at the moment. This is site 4 layout. So this is Shakespeare Avenue along the north and Scott Avenue there. This is, we'll see in a moment, this is a new apartment block. This photo's here because you'll notice in paragraph 6.135 of the report, there was a concern from this resident in terms of the relationship of the side of their property with the flats. So if we go back here, this is 21A Shakespeare Road, and this is the new flat, so that will be a 3-storey element to the side of them at the moment. And you'll notice their door is on that side elevation. There's a ground floor window and a first floor window. And as set out in the report, the owners confirmed that the ground floor window serves a main living area, but there's also a similar size window and a small patio door to the rear that serves the same accommodation. And the first floor window relates to stairs and landing. That's the only window to that area. This is site 4. This is the elevations. So the side, yeah, the elevations. These are some photographs that are adjacent to site 4. This is actually outside the application site. They're photographs of the existing retail units, and those retail units will be retained. As I said, they're outside the application site. They're on Scott Avenue. This relates to site 5, so this is the area that retained public open space, and we've got a block of flats in this location, and then some houses fronting onto Shakespeare Avenue. Elevations, that's the flaps. Again, that would be fronting onto the public open space, so that's along that elevation, the rear and the 2 side elevations. Again, that's just the detailing for the bay showing the recessed balconies. This is site 6, so this is the northernmost part of the site. We've got a block of flats here at the moment which would be demolished. These are the bungalows which will be retained. So you've got a new block of flats here, and then you've got some houses in the rear. That's photographs of site 6 at the moment, so that's the apartment block that will be demolished, and there you see the bungalows. They're the elevations for site 6. You'll see it drops down to 2-storey where it's adjacent to the bungalow. On site 6, we also have a community allotment, an area for community allotments. So that's on site 6. So it will be fenced. It will have a 1500 millimetre fence with galvanised steel mesh infill and native planting behind, and it will include a number of timber planters. There's a tool store to lock away, a lockable tool store, and with facilities for rainwater harvesting, and then we've got some storage. We've got a composting area and storage for the rainwater. So site 7 and 8, so this is the site. We've got Cole Avenue running along to the south, and we've got the new BMX pump track in this area, and then some new houses just there. This is photographs of the area at the moment. It's just sort of informal public open space. There's no play facilities or anything in that area at the moment. So that's a little bit of detail of the pump track. The actual this is illustrative. It will be designed by experts when we get to that stage. But the track itself would be surfaced in macadam, and then you've got some natural sort of planting to make it look more natural. We've got a basin here to treat the surface runoff from the track, and just off screen there's also a sort of trim trail and also a local area play, obviously with planting around it. There's just some slides here just giving you a feel for the house design. So they're quite small on the screen, I appreciate that. A lot of them you'll see have this carport arrangement sort of built in. So you have a parking space and then you have a dedicated storage area for your bins and cycles. So it takes the cars off the road, so it's quite a neat way of dealing with them. That's the non-carport type of house. So they're the 2-bed designs, and then we've got various 3-bed designs, again some with the integrated carport. They're various sizes. We've got 3-bed 6-person, 3-bed 5-person, etc. And then we've also got some 4-bed houses, again various sizes, 4-bed 6, 4-bed 8 and 4-bed 7-person. And we've got a couple of 5-bed houses now as well, which is good to have some larger family houses on the site. Again, this is just some of the detailing, showing you some of the detailing to the houses. So where you've got the 2.5 storey, they've just got a neat little dormer in the roof space. You can see the detailing with the carport, and you can see sort of the detailing of the windows. So it just gives you a flavour of some of the detailing. Now we've got some indicative street scenes. Try and take you through where they are. This one, the first one, is along, starting at Shakespeare Avenue and coming along Scott Avenue through sites 5 and site 2. There's the public open space, and down to the Cole Avenue junction with the new 4-storey block with the retail on the ground floor and the apartments above. Another one. This is along Macefield Avenue. You can see BB along here. So it's starting at the public plaza. There's the commercial units and the flats, and then we're running along the road. Again, you've got the open space and up towards the flats on the upper part of the site. We've got various. This is various cross sections here. We've got Shakespeare Avenue with the houses on plot 5 coming along the flats on site 4. Then we've got Burns Avenue. Again, there's the apartment blocks, and then we've got EE is along in that area there. So GG is this one here. It's looking back at the houses on site 2 from the public open space. So you've stood in the public open space looking in that direction. And then this one is taken from Shakespeare Avenue flats, looking across site 2. And then we've got Betjeman Avenue, the flats on site 6. This is FF. This is along Cole Avenue. So you'll see the houses, the open space with the BMX track, and again the main building to the front. And then we've got J and K. So it's just coming around Shakespeare Avenue and Byron Avenue along there. So they're the new houses. Then we've just got some illustrative sketches, which are quite useful. That's the Gateway building with the plaza in front. So that's as you come off Cole Avenue. This is again a view looking across the plaza at the with the retail units on the ground floor, the flats above. This is the site in Cole Avenue, so you can see the arrangements with the carports here, the houses on Scott Avenue. That's the central open space, looking across to sites 4 and 5. Again, Shakespeare Avenue, showing the flats. This is just a slide that Matt from Highways the Highways officer might want to refer to. You may see reference in the report to the cycle spine scheme, the Gloucester to Haresfield cycle spine. So we've just looked at it and made sure that there's no development or landscaping within the anticipated route, so that the current scheme wouldn't prejudice the delivery of that cycle scheme. You'll see the recommendation is a little bit unusual. It's set out in paragraphs 6.212 onwards. The consideration of this application is very finely balanced, which is why we haven't given a clear recommendation. We've put forward a couple of options for members and set out in the report what we see as the benefits and disbenefits, and they're set out in paragraphs 6.213 and 6.214 of the report. Very briefly, in terms of the positive, the benefits, so you get 172 modern, energy efficient social rented houses with the associated benefits. There's qualitative improvements to the retained public open space, new economic opportunities, retail units, biodiversity net gain, and financial contributions towards improving some off-site play and sport. The negatives, so you'll see them summarised in 6.214 of the report. The main issue being the loss of 1.91 hectares of public open space, so that's 60% of the existing public open space. No contribution towards the educational library requirement. It's a scaled down regeneration project compared with the aspirations of the supplementary planning document. Fails to meet all the parking standards, and there is a financial contribution towards the off-site sport and play, but it's slightly reduced from what would usually anticipated through an extra 108 residential units. As I said, we put forward 2 options for members to consider. Members aren't bound by these options and obviously can make an alternative decision, provided that the decision is based on material planning considerations. So I think that it's for members really to consider the weights which they attribute to what weight they give to each of the attributing competing considerations of the scheme. So the 2 options that we have put forward is then in no particular order, so neither has a greater weight, but option A in the report is that permission be refused. And if members feel that on balance, after considering all the issues, that the scheme is unacceptable, they should refuse to grant planning permission, and we've put forward a draft reason for refusal, and that's set out in paragraph 7.6 of the report. And you'll see option B is that you resolve to grant planning permission. So if members feel that on balance, after considering all of the issues, that the scheme is acceptable, we're recommending that you should resolve that the grant of planning permission is delegated to the planning development manager, subject to the conditions set out in the report as amended by the late material, and the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the elements identified in the draft heads of terms, which are set out in paragraph 6.203 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now come to the public speaking section of the meeting. First of all, can I ask Councillor Field to come forward and make your representation? You have 5 minutes. Would you like a 1-minute warning?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am speaking as the local member for Podsmead. I do not speak on behalf of the Cabinet. And if this application does pass tonight, I will recuse myself from any decision making that Cabinet may subsequently make on this application. Since elected to Podsmead in 2019, I've always expressed broad support for regeneration, and I've said that publicly many times. This is why I did not chair any items on Podsmead regeneration during my time as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny. But I've also always been consistent in my concern over the loss of green space from this application. I do have concerns over the wider application, and it would be wrong of me not to speak out about them here. Over my time as councillor for Podsmead, I've had a variety of views.
Yes, certainly. Councillor Bell arrived late, so he did not hear the presentation. And it's important that members hear the full presentation, all the pros and cons, so that they can make a reasoned decision. So he'll have to sit out for this application.
Thank you, Chair. Over my time as councillor for Podsmead, I've heard a variety of views on regeneration, some for, some against, and some, frankly, not sure. I can see the benefits in a ward that has such a level of deprivation as Podsmead does, and I can see the benefits that this scheme would bring, such as a pharmacy, quality housing, good local facilities, and some economic and environmental benefits. But I do keep coming back to the loss of green space. Over the whole site, as the report mentions, we are losing 1.19 hectares, and section 3.4 says the proposed development would result in the loss of approximately 60% of the existing informal amenity green space across the wider regeneration area. That is quite a lot. 34 trees are going to be lost, and yes, they are to be replaced and added to, but we all know that young trees do not capture carbon nearly as well as mature trees, and even the tree officer is concerned, as you saw in the late material. Officers have also expressed concerns that the development does not comply with policies SD6, SD9 and INF3 of the Joint Core Strategy or policy E6 of the Gloucester City Plan. And I am worried also, and perhaps this is just one comment in my role as Cabinet Member for the Environment, about the amount of concrete and hard standing and plastic pitches that will be part of this development. We do know that this substance, this material retains heat, and we are keenly aware of that at this present time. I also don't believe that the residents of Byron Avenue wanted a BMX pump track outside their house, especially as they have lost their open space if this application is to be passed. I believe these concerns will all need to be addressed, and questions like the amount of contribution for school places, the overall viability of the scheme, the library provision, and facilities for play and sport will all need to be answered. And also we need to, thank you, Chair. We also need to address the question in paragraph 3.5 of the scheme, of the report, where it says the scheme will improve social and economic opportunities for residents. I think we need to be very clear exactly how that's going to be done. I don't think that's answered in the report at this time. In short, whilst I want to see regeneration, this feels to me something like development and not necessarily regeneration. I am concerned that we don't have to accept it, whatever the cost. We can amend this, make changes to it, and if it does pass, I think it will have to have many conditions attached to it. But I remain open-minded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Field. We have a second speaker. Can I ask Alexandra Egger to come forward, please, to address the meeting? You have 5 minutes. Would you like a 1-minute warning?
Good evening. My name is Alex and I'm the planning consultant speaking on behalf of the applicant. The scheme before you presents an opportunity to catalyse the regeneration of the Podsmead estate to deliver not only 172 new social homes, but a richly landscaped setting and local amenities within a sustainable location. The proposal has evolved in partnership with residents across an extensive engagement process stretching back to 2017. By delivering 108 additional social homes, this scheme will help address the over 5,000 people on the waiting list for social housing within Gloucester as of October 2024, and will contribute to a national step change in the delivery of social housing. The proposals include 15 4- and 5-bedroom homes, which are some of the most in-demand sizes. For context, in October last year, there were 244 families waiting for a 4-bedroom home and 65 waiting for a 5-bedroom. This development will therefore make a meaningful contribution towards meeting the clear and pressing demand for larger social homes within the area. Housing decants will also be phased so that residents can move directly into their long-term home without the need for any temporary accommodation. The scheme will also address the urgent need for social housing, which is accessible. Over 100 of the homes will be accessible at M42 level, and a further 12 will be fully wheelchair accessible and adaptable. This exceeds the requirements set out in Gloucester City Plan Policy A6. The proposed homes will also be more energy efficient with EPC ratings of A and B, which not only makes them better for the environment, but also less expensive for residents to heat. At present, many residents are forced to park on the street due to insufficient off-street parking. The proposed scheme includes off-street parking both for houses and for rear parking courtyards for the flats. By providing better off-street parking for residents, the proposals are anticipated to reduce the current levels of on-street parking across Podsmead. The regeneration of Podsmead will also include local retail, for example, a Tesco Express or a co-op, and space available for community enterprise, with a new pharmacy provided as part of the wider regeneration. This will create a vibrant local centre and reduce the need for residents to leave the area to access key amenities. The elephant in the room today is, of course, the fact that this proposal includes building on an area of open green space. Proposing to build on this space is not something which the applicant or the design team take lightly. The design team have gone through a process of scheme revision and optioneering, and the proposed scheme carefully balances retaining as much green space as possible while delivering the quantum of housing needed to make the regeneration feasible and to cross-subsidize the improvements being made to landscaping, play, and sports facilities. The proposals will enhance the remaining green space and landscape, strengthening its role at the heart of Podsmead and giving it a clearer purpose. The space will have new play areas, a multi-use games area, a BMX track, a community orchard, over 200 new trees, and a greater variety of planting to create a vibrant natural setting.
1 minute.
The green space will also be more accessible with better footpaths, seating, and lighting, so people of all ages and abilities can benefit from access to nature. The applicant has also committed to providing £649,000 to improve green spaces and play facilities within the local area. This is being provided despite the scheme's viability position, which means it would not usually be able to support any Section 106 contributions. We know that this decision is finely balanced, and the loss of open space must be carefully considered. However, in this case, we feel that the benefits clearly outweigh the costs. Gloucester City Council's Growth and Delivery Manager noted that the proposed regeneration would be of enormous benefit to local residents. From providing access to local shops, improved sports facilities, increased biodiversity, and most significantly, improving the living environment for current residents and creating the opportunity for over 100 families to move into a new social home. These benefits, combined with the generous contributions towards off-site open space, make a strong and justified case for granting consent and giving a new lease of life to the Podsmead estate.
Thank you very much. We now move to members' questions. There should be appropriate questions, matters of detail, clarification. Can I ask you all to ask one question at a time, and we'll go around the table, starting with Councillor Wiederhold.
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to be first. I have a question about the movement of people if residents are required to move more than once. At the moment, it says the intention is that residents would only have to move once without the need to move into temporary accommodation. Can we introduce penalties or some form of compensation if that intention does not go ahead?
Not through the planning system. You'll notice in terms of the heads of terms that a rehousing strategy is to be agreed with the City Council, and that is the intention, and there would be enough accommodation to move people directly in. So that is the intention of the applicant. I said we have got the requirement in terms of the heads of terms for Section 106 that a rehousing strategy would need to be agreed with ourselves. But we couldn't introduce any fines or anything through the planning application.
Any other questions? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. There's been a mention of an orchard. Where is that? Is it the 4 apple trees?
Yeah, they were shown on the drawing there. Yeah, so there's some orchard trees. Can't read the. There's a number of orchard trees across the site. Yeah, and they're looking to use sort of local Gloucestershire apple varieties. And there's also we've got the community allotment, as I said, and there's also opportunities for some communal planting in the communal gardens, so also some additional planting opportunities and small allotment type planters.
What you're saying is there's no actual orchard as such, it's just apple tree here, pear tree over there, or this, that and the other. It's that sort of arrangement?
Yeah, it's not a formal orchard, but the trees will sort of be grouped together, but throughout the site, yeah.
Councillor Jones.
It's great that the houses have got solar and heat pumps. It's a shame that the flats haven't got solar power or heat pumps. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I did ask the question why that was the case, and I'll just read you the response that we received. They're not provided on the flats due to concerns on how they could be distributed and metered between the flats. And go on to say, even with the inclusion of the PV panels, the flats would still not achieve the EPC A rating. So GCH decided to admit the PV panels from the flats, and that's the reason that I've been given.
Councillor Jones.
Just come back on that. So does that mean the flats would be EPC B rated rather than the houses being A?
That's right, that the houses would be EPC A and the flats would be EPC B.
Any other questions? Well, nobody indicated a hand, so Councillor Chair.
Let's talk to the chemist. Is that definitely they will have a chemist? Pharmacy? Because they all joined to a doctor's surgery now. And I just want, this talk going about in pharmacy. Well, I'm not backman into saying that. And yeah, that's that. And also, allotments. How would you decide who had an allotment? That should be in a debate, really, shouldn't it?
So in terms of the pharmacy isn't in the application site. It's on Scott Avenue in the former Podsmead local building, and it's not linked to this application. So we have been told that the applicant has had discussions with Badhams, and they're likely to, and they've agreed terms for that, but it's outside this application site. So it's not part of the planning application before you tonight. Yeah.
And before I talk about housing, let's do highways. Right. So I'm a bit worried because they're all narrow roads around there, as you know. And where would that traffic be generated out to? Cole Avenue, when they come off this new housing estate, if it happens? Or would they also be branched down Podsmead Road? Because it's all quite busy all around there. And then you've got traffic coming from Tuffley Avenue, crossing Cole Avenue. So how does one get out of that? Or could we, if this happened, divert them back out to where Tuffley Lane's closed?
Thank you, Councillor Tracy. Through you, Chair. The Highway Authority has undertaken a robust assessment of the planning application, and we've worked very closely with the applicants and their transport consultants, SLR, who undertook a comprehensive transport assessment of the scheme. Based on the analysis of the information submitted, the Highway Authority concludes that there would not be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or a severe impact on congestion, and there are no justifiable grounds on which an objection can be maintained by the Highway Authority. So, yeah, that's the answer to that question.
I know where I'm coming from, but yeah. Okay, go on, you're going to do something? No.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm just a bit weary about this traffic all going out onto Cole Avenue.
I'm wondering if we're moving into debate at that point. If you can leave it for now, unless the officer has got a response. You've got a response.
Through you, Chair. Our local highway manager has alerted us to the known problems on Podsmead Road, around the Crypt School, around the pick-up and drop-off of children and so on. That was considered and accounted for in our highway assessment and review of and discussions with the transport consultants for the scheme through the transport assessment. So just refer back to my previous comments that we've reviewed it all very carefully, robustly, and we are not able to sustain an objection. Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the housing, they're very mixed. I personally, I feel looking at the plans and everything, what you've shown, there'll be many looking over one another. And also, I think they're quite high-rising, some of the flats. Also, I've got a few going into this, Caroline. I'm a bit worried those flats going along different stages parallel with Cole Avenue, would they need a kind of sound barrier if that happens?
Okay, so I think if we just go through your questions, I think the first one was like overlooking between the units. Yeah, apart from a couple that they do meet or exceed our standards, apart from in a couple of instances where there's like back to back would be 20 and would usually look for 21, and there's a slight conflict in one of the other sites, but generally they meet or exceed our standards. So it's only a couple that are slightly below, and they're only slightly below. So we're comfortable with the relationships between both existing houses and existing and new houses. In terms of the comments about the high-rise units, the flats are all, the highest one as you come in from Cole Avenue on that feature building there, and that's 4 stories in total, because you've got the retail or commercial use on the ground floor, and then 3 levels of flats above. All the other blocks of apartments are at the highest 3 stories, and they step down on the edges on some of them to 2 stories. For instance, in the top, that's site 6, where it's next to the bungalows, it steps down to 2-story there. So in some instances, they step down to 2. And in terms of noise, we've had noise reports, and our expert, our advisor on noise, is happy, subject to the conditions that are set out in the report. So they're happy with that. There needs to be a bit more information, but they're happy that noise won't be a problem. They are.
My other question is, I'm not very happy with the colour. It looks a bit like Codits or something. The colour of the stone, is that the right colour? There's no variation. No, for this day and age, architects could, verify it. It just looks like they want Clapham Court down.
Yeah, the materials they're looking to use are a mixture of red brick and some buff bricks on the ground floor, and then some cladding. They've put forward some materials, but we haven't seen samples or anything, so we've conditioned the materials. But it is the use of a couple of red bricks, a buff brick on the apartments at the ground floor, and then some cladding and different materials for the roof, etc. So they're the materials that they're looking for. Obviously, they're looking at, we'd look to make sure it fitted in with the surrounding area. So no, it's not cladding. It's the sort of the roof, the standard seam roof, and different colour in the recesses, but it's not cladding as such to the buildings.
And the 5-bedroom, 4-bedroom, that'd be more family homes. So adjacent to that, would they have washing lines or rotating lines? And would there being, you know, there'll be more, hopefully, like if it happens, children, as said, would that play area be near there?
All the houses have private rear gardens, and the apartments all have either a balcony, a recessed balcony, or the ground floor ones have got a small like patio area. The public open space in the play area is close by to all the houses, so you know it's a short walk. So yeah, it is within easy walking distance. They've got private gardens, so if they wish to put. No, the flats, which aren't the larger family houses, all the houses themselves have got private rear gardens. So if they wanted a washing line, they could put a washing line in their rear garden. The flats have got the recessed balconies, and the ground floor ones, they've got small patio areas. So everybody's got some private amenity space.
You're waiting to the
Councillor James, you were waiting to the
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask what consultation had been undertaken which led to the decision to include the BMX track on the main drag through Cole Avenue there?
Yeah, I did ask this question, so again, I can read you the answer. The inclusion of the BMX track stems from a few different sources. Primarily, the opportunity to provide a type of recreational facility that's not currently available locally. This inclusion has been positively received through the community consultation process and evolved from an initial aspiration for a skate park into a BMX track. The BMX track has also been praised by Sport England to help encourage healthy lifestyles and outdoor play. It has been supported by Sport England as well. So that's where it came from.
Is there another question, Councillor James? Councillor Lewis?
Thanks, Chair. That main block as you come in, the shops at the bottom, what type of shops are we talking about? And if people like a food shop or a chemist, where are they going to park? When they're dropping off and picking up and all the rest of it? Because if it's going to be on the side of the road, doesn't that defeat the whole object of having all these... Yeah, but if the shops are over here, you know damn well they'll park there. So I just wondered if there's any consideration. I see there's bits over on the right-hand side, but on the left-hand side, where the shops are going to be, they won't going to walk 100 yards. They'll park right next to it and whatever. Is there any consideration about putting some parking over that side?
The retail units are on the ground floor. There aren't known occupants at the moment, but the applicant has said they have gone to the market to get a reaction, and I think they've liaised with Tesco's and Co-op, who have confirmed that the units are a size that that would be suitable for like one of their local stores, although they won't commit until it's further along in the process. The parking area for the retail units, I don't know if you can see on the screen, is just in this area here. That's the area for the commercial units.
Councillor Gravels?
I'm not on this committee, as you all know, so I'm not up to speed as much as you guys are. But my understanding is that the planners are saying, we can't call this one, so we're going to leave it to you as members to make a decision. Is that just about right?
Because it's very finely balanced.
Sure. Sorry.
Because it's very finely balanced, it depends on what weight members attribute to the positive aspects as opposed to the disbenefits. So it is very finely balanced. So that's why we haven't given a clear recommendation. The report sets out what we see as the positive issues related to the application and also the disbenefits, which is why we've given the two options, because it's so finely balanced. And it depends what you attribute the greatest weight to.
So following on from that, what would it take, what would you require from the applicant to move it across, move it further up? So you say, yep, we're quite happy with this. What would it take? What would they need to show us? What would they need to provide to enable you to say, yeah, we're happy, we can grant, we recommend approval?
We've worked very hard with the applicant and their agent to get the best scheme that we can and address all the issues that we had initially. The main issue for us is the loss of open space, and there can't be any tweaks to reduce that because this scheme relies on building on the public open space. So we've just set out, I hope, in a balanced report, what the benefits and disbenefits are. They can't address the loss of that amount of public open space with this scheme that's before you this evening. We've worked through all the other issues. We've done a lot of work with the applicant to iron out all the issues that we could.
Just for background, I worked really hard with all political parties on the council to get the city plan, as Claire knows, approved by council across the board politically. There was no political squabbling. And I certainly didn't do that for people to drive a coach and horses through it at the first opportunity. But picking up the issue of public open space, what activities is that used for? Is it used for organised sport? Is it organised for community events? What will be the loss of some of that land being taken away for building? What is the impact?
Well, the scheme does replace the MUGA, the multi-use games area. It does replace the play area. It does replace the memorial garden, and it introduces the BMX track. But say it's the loss in the city plan and the national policies. It doesn't comply with those in terms of the loss of that open space. Once it's gone, it's gone. There is, at the moment, it's used informally for kick-arounds. There are 2 goalposts there, or the outlines of the goalpost, and that would be lost, and as would the opportunity to improve it in the future. It's the loss of that area. But, you know, they have reintroduced some of the elements that are going, but obviously there is a big loss of area.
That up, if the BMX track wasn't there, then the impact would be a lot less acute.
I don't think that would the impact would be less acute. You've still got 60% less public open space. You're still losing that quantum of open space. It would just be that area could be used differently, but you've still got an in principle conflict with your city plan policy and with the policies in the NPPF. It's the loss of the quantum that is the concern.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions, if I may. I certainly have not expressed a view on the plans when we were working with the local members from Matson and Podsmead. But I had my view, and I still do, my vision, if you like, of what regeneration ought to look like. And I'm not sure we're seeing that on this application. So the retail offer says, words to the effect, well, people won't have to go so far to buy things and do their shopping. I'm unclear about whether or not there is guaranteed to be a pharmacy there, as well as a doctor's surgery. And if it is, what other community facilities in terms of retail will be on that site? What is the offer there? I don't know if Sebastian's allowed to comment or...
As I've explained, the pharmacy is outside the application site. As far as we know, the applicant has had discussions and agreed terms with Badham's Pharmacy, but that's outside the application site. It's not dependent on this development. It's on Scott Avenue in the previous Podsmead local community facility, that building. In terms of the retail offer, it's flexible. There's an area on the ground floor of the main building as you come into Cole Avenue. There are no named occupants at the moment, but as I said, they have gone to market to look at whether people will be interested, and I know that they have approached Co-op and Tesco's, both of whom have confirmed that they're the right sort of size units that they would be interested in for a local store, but there's no commitment. Nobody will commit until it's a bit further along. So we don't know who would take those units at the moment, but they have gone to the market and just asked general questions. And the pharmacy is outside the application.
My last question regards to the comments in the report about parking. And we've all seen parts of Gloucester where parking is haphazard and chaotic. What are the implications of parking standards not being met for the people who have to live there in the streets and the pathways and all that kind of stuff? Does it equal chaos? Does it equal? You're saying no, but that's fair enough. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Gravels, and through you, Chair. The Highway Authority do object to the under-provision of parking compared to our adopted parking standards. However, parking analysis presented to us by the transport consultants does appear to show a net betterment compared to the current level of on-street parking on streets. The flats that are due to be demolished don't meet our adopted parking standards either. So we recognise that that's a viable fallback position in the event that, and so on balance, the Highway Authority recognises that we cannot sustain an objection in relation to this application. And we recommend that this application is not refused solely on the basis of non-adherence to the county parking standards.
Probably my last question. Thank you for your patience. No, thank you for your patience. So where is the wriggle room, if I can put it that way? Where is the room where we can go back to the applicant and say, can you look at this? Can you look at that? Rather than just either accept it and pass it or refuse. Where I appreciate the officer said that you don't, you spent a lot of time with the applicant to try and get things right. But there's always another opportunity, isn't there, to go back and say, in view of what members have said this evening, please can you take another look before we take a move on refusal or giving permission.
Thank you, Chair. Just to remind members that we're here to determine the application before us. This is not a process of negotiation. So we need to be mindful of the information we have in front of us and take a decision based on that information.
But why, I'm not quite sure I follow that. Why can't we say we're not prepared to make a decision this evening because we're asking you guys to go back to the applicant and see if they can make improvements which will reflect what we've discussed this evening? I'm not quite sure. Are we bound by law to nod it through or reject it? Do we? I didn't realise that.
If I may, through you, Chair, there are limited grounds to defer an application. For example, a site visit to find more information that you need on the application, but you have the application before you, that's a complete application. I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending that you defer on the basis you want to negotiate further. As the planning manager has stated, the application is before you. You either approve the application or reject the application. That's the application that's before you for determination tonight. Thank you.
You said them in the middle of that, but if you want more information, you could go back.
That would be, for example, site information, looking at if there was some concerns of highways, how the road network looked, and you wanted to go out and have a look at it, for example. I wouldn't recommend deferral on the basis you want to push the application back for further negotiation. That's outside your remit as the planning committee. Your remit is to make a decision on the application before you.
Can I remind members we are still in the question phase of the meeting, so I'm going to go to Councillor Harris now.
Thank you, Chair. My questions relate to highways. So Scott Avenue is a relatively thin road and it's often got cars parked all the way along it to the point where Scott Avenue, and I can't remember the name, is it Maysfields Avenue across the other side has kind of become a informal one-way street where traffic goes down one way and back up the other because it is a very small road. Wondering if there's been any thoughts on whether these roads should become a formal one-way up Scott Avenue and down Marsfields to alleviate some of the issues on that road, given we're going to have extra extra traffic flows on there. Also, the houses that are behind the plaza built on the current open space, I noticed their driveways go onto Scott Avenue where it is a relatively thin road and there's often cars parked along there quite a lot. So my concern is that that's going to cause an issue for people getting onto and off of their driveways. If there were to be people parking in that area, we could say let's put double yellows down there, but that's just going to force parking further along. And then with the additional retail, what kind of an, I'm not sure what the exact question I'm going to, but my concern is what has the highways done to look into the potentials of the width of Scott Avenue and how the current state with excessive parking will be impacted by this development?
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Through you, Chair. Yeah, we undertook site visits. We made measurements of the highway widths. We worked very closely with the applicants, their agents, and their consultants to consider a range of issues, particularly related to parking, as I answered Councillor Gravels a moment ago. It is not proposed as part of this scheme to introduce any new one-way systems. It is relevant that we're expecting a betterment in terms of the on-street parking, because even though they're not meeting our adopted parking standards in terms of in-curtilage, off-street parking provision, we do expect from the analysis to see some betterment in the parking provision. So it shouldn't worsen the situation in terms of that sort of one-way working, shuttle working that you're talking about. We did work very closely with the applicants through a road safety audit, stage 1 road safety audit, looking at the potential safety problems that were raised. There were some highway safety concerns, and they are introducing some junction treatments intended to better traffic calm what is already a 20-mile-per-hour neighbourhood. So it's already got 20-mile-per-hour restrictions. We don't typically support use of traffic regulation orders to be secured through planning condition because it's a separate process which cannot be controlled through planning. It's the Highway Authority's discretion. Really, we try and work with applicants to ensure that the scheme is designed to an appropriate standard so that there is not a need for new additional traffic regulation orders in schemes. Yeah, hopefully that's a complete answer. You know, we are quite balanced in our position, but we don't think we can sustain an objection on highway safety or on traffic congestion grounds.
Councillor Castle next.
Thank you. In paragraph 3.5, it states that one of the aims of the project is to improve social and economic opportunities for residents. How will this development achieve this?
You'll see that there's been an employment skills plan, so offering sort of some apprenticeships and some jobs during the construction period, and the other social and economic benefits would be the inclusion of the retail and commercial spaces on site 1 and 2 in terms of those units.
In paragraph 4.3, if planning committee grant permission, then mitigation should be secured through the section 106 agreements. Seeing that they can't contribute to all schools' libraries because of their viability, how likely is it that Gloucester City Homes won't end up contributing towards this due to the viability issue?
Sorry.
On paragraph 4.3.
That's just fine.
Yeah, sure.
So we're talking about the open space contribution.
Yeah, it states.
You found it, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, they've agreed, and it would be in the legal agreement, though they've agreed to a figure, recognising the importance of play and open space, and to try and help mitigate the loss of the public open space. They have offered that money, and it would be secured through a legal agreement. So they would sign that legal agreement, so the money would need to be paid.
Figure is?
Yes. The figures are for the legal agreement are all set out in paragraph 6.203, and for the public open space and recreation, in terms of an off-site contribution, they've offered a financial contribution of £595,000 towards improving and upgrading off-site sports provision within 2 kilometres of the application site, together with a financial contribution of £54,000 to deliver improved play equipment at Homely Park. The financial viability appraisal, which has been checked by our consultants, does show that the site isn't viable, but in recognition of the importance of play and open space and the fact that there is such a reduction of open space on site, that's what the developer has offered. That's also to mitigate, because if you're introducing additional residential units, so they would increase the demand for play and sport. So we would usually look for those to be delivered on site, or where they couldn't be delivered on site, to be delivered by an off-site contribution. So that would be secured by the legal agreement that has been offered by the applicant.
Sorry. In the late material, there was concern over the person who wrote that there will be, they have concerns that the income will be lost when the shop is closed. What protection has this person been given to when the new shops will be open and the timescale?
The existing shops are outside the The existing shops on Scott Avenue are outside the application site, so they would be unaffected by the proposal. So they wouldn't, under this application, they're not being demolished or lost. They'll be retained.
His shop's going to close, and that's outside of the planning. Is that correct?
I'm not aware why his shop would close. It's outside of the planning application. Maybe he hasn't understood the plans. I don't know. I'm not aware that any of the shops would need to close. They're retained, and they're outside the application site. So there would be no need for them to be demolished or lost as part of this scheme. So I'm not aware that they are closing.
Just one more then. So there's only 108 extra homes being built, which isn't many. 172 new homes, there's 64 that they are knocking down. So it's not really a once in a lifetime generation project. The original red line is significantly smaller than the first submission. This looks to be a new development rather than a regeneration scheme. What percentage is the new development and what percentage is the regeneration of existing buildings?
Essentially, well, we lose 64 houses would be demolished,
Yeah.
and 172 would be provided, so it's an additional 108 units.
Councillor Lewis, I believe, and then Councillor Weedhold.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To overcome the biodiversity net's on-site loss of over a hectare, 1 hectare because you're building more houses. There is, within 2 kilometres, Homely Park, Tuffley Rovers, Randwick Park. However, there is a barrier. Cole Avenue, the bridge, the traffic. Now, there's another link there between the bigger picture is, you know, if you have a cycle spine going all the way from Bishopscleeve through to Stroud via Podsmead and this development, it'd be safe cycle space. So there'd be less cars. As we're moving forward, we should have less cars, not more cars. There's also good broadband, so people will be less of a need to go into work hybrid, as they do with the council. As some of the key thing here is deprivation and homes. The homes are damp, they're cold, they lack quality. The green space itself, you're getting rid of poor quality green space and putting in place quality, modern, up-to-date, that reflects the needs of the local residents.
Can I ask what your question is, please, Councillor Jones?
Well, my question is, we need a bridge between Cole Avenue to get to the 2 kilometres within reach of Homely Park, which is stated at the beginning there. And I respected 1 question per member here, and it's not a round table. I mean, we put our hands up and we wait for due diligence from our chair. Thank you, Chair.
In terms of a crossing to Cole Avenue, Matt can come in, but that would be delivered, or it's intended to be delivered as part of the cycle spine. I think whether Matt can give a little bit more information on that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. Through you, Chair. The Podsmead Estate Regeneration Supplementary Planning Document from November 2019 emphasises the need to improve connectivity both through the estate and beyond to the surrounding areas, including links across Cole Avenue. We work closely with the applicant and their transport consultants to ensure that the transport assessment included audits of the existing connectivity and the likely distribution of walking and cycling trips from the proposed development. The proposed highway works appear to respond to the comments raised by the road safety audit and the designer's response. Ideally, the proposals would all be shown on one proposed highway works drawing. However, that can be addressed post-planning at detailed design stage as part of our Section 278 approval with the Highway Authority. The need identified in the SPD to improve connectivity both through the estate and beyond to the surrounding areas, including links across Cole Avenue, will instead now be provided by the Cycle Spine scheme, to be delivered by Gloucestershire County Council. In anticipation of potential follow-on questions, so that Cycle Spine scheme currently has funding from SIL funding to develop the design for the Cycle Spine scheme. We are then dependent on third-party funding to construct the Cycle Spine scheme through this area, and so in terms of timescales, they are dependent on third-party funding, but we would hope that it would be likely within 5 years, which might put it in the realms of the latter phases of this scheme, which would be the areas adjacent to the Cycle Spine scheme. So it may well be in a similar time frame. We've worked closely with the applicants and their transport and landscape consultants to ensure that the regeneration scheme is not to prejudice the future delivery of the Cycle Spine scheme. We have a cycle and pedestrian links drawing, which was presented previously, which shows there is no need for the regeneration scheme to conflict with the required widths for the Cycle Spine corridor. There's now also been confirmation from ARB that the parking bays can move into the route protection area with a cell web build-up in the parking area for the scheme. So it's anticipated that a transfer of land to enable delivery of the Cycle Spine corridor will be facilitated by Gloucester City Council, and I've had assurances from the case officer that that is the case. So on the condition that the regeneration scheme does not prejudice and facilitates the future delivery of the cycle spine corridor, on balance, the Highway Authority cannot sustain an objection to the proposed active travel connectivity of the proposed development.
Do you have any further questions? No. Then Councillor Castle, I believe, has another one.
Sorry, you go first.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Weird now.
Let's give us some training. No. Thank you, Chair. Looking at clause 1.10, the three phases that exist. In the first phase is the removal of existing play equipment. And I don't see any reintroduction of such play equipment, and I'm not sure where young children are proposed to play, because they're not going to be using the BMX track.
Yeah, that will be in the first phase. So step one would be to remove the current play area from the southern end of the central public open space and to construct the new play equipment on site one. So that would be the very first phase.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's just not clear in here, because it says it's removal, but it never reintroduces it.
So we've had that clarified, and you'll see that we've, in terms of condition and in the legal agreement, we've got control of the phasing. We've asked for details of the phasing, so we can control that through condition and the legal agreement as well.
Have you finished, Councillor Weatherhold?
Yes, Chair. I thought we only had one at a time, so yes.
Councillor Castle next.
The green open space that's currently looked after by the City Council, am I correct in this has been managed by Gloucester City Homes? And if so, will they be charging the tenants for the upkeep?
It will be managed by Gloucester City Homes. I don't know whether they will charge their what they'll charge their tenants, but if you look in the heads of terms at 6.203, it includes under the affordable housing heads of terms that rent and service charge cap arrangements will be agreed with the City Council.
Councillor Tracy.
I'm so sorry, you're going through earlier, aren't you? But that's what it's all about, isn't it? But nothing's been spoken about, like the drainage, and if we've got a balancing pond, because there's a lot of houses and all that water got to go underneath that ground. And we only have so much space up from up there to say how much water could go underneath. And I'm a bit wary if we got just like a slant on the land, because they did have flood in there in Podsmead. And, you know, do they have a little balancing pond there, or what would happen with the water if there was a crisis? I mean, we all need rain at the moment, but when it's going to come, it's going to come.
You'll see in the report that the drainage is covered. It's been looked at extensively by our drainage engineers. There will be balancing ponds, there's rain gardens, so the sustainable urban drainage. And they're happy with the outline drainage scheme, and there's conditions to require detailed drainage scheme. And there's also a condition 17, that if there's any unexpected drainage issues encountered, that they would need to revert back to us as well. Yeah, our drainage engineers have looked at it in great detail, as has the lead flood authority as well. There's various ponds. One, as I showed you in the by the BMX track, that there's various ones, swales and indentations across the site in the public open space. And in the plaza, there's rain gardens. So it has been looked at really comprehensively. It took quite a while for our engineers to be satisfied with the scheme. Okay.
Are there any other questions from members? Councillor Weeder.
Sorry, Chair, that question has just prompted me to ask, clause 4.8 states that it is advised that the applicant contact Severn Trent Water to discuss the proposals. Do we know whether the applicant has discussed the proposals with Severn Trent?
That is very much for them, but I have got an answer to that. So I'll read you the answer that has been provided. Obviously, they'd have to make agreement with Severn Trent outside the planning application process. Severn Trent haven't actually objected to the application, subject to conditions, and put in the note on because there's sewers across the site. But in terms of the response from the applicant, in terms of what dialogue they've had with Severn Trent Water, again, I'll read you what they say. They say there has been no consultation with Severn Trent Water. The design works were completed in lieu of a CCTV condition survey, although this has now been completed. And it's now down for the drainage engineer at the detailed design stage to commence consultation with Severn Trent Water to move things further and determine their requirements.
Any more questions? I have a couple, but is there anybody else waiting to? Councillor Grove?
Very quickly, it's picking up on some of the points that Councillor Cussell was making when she was referring to the number of extra units. So we're in a catch-22 in a way as a planning committee. We've got the applicant saying,
Councillor Gravels, is this a question or is this discussion?
No, I'm coming to the question. We've got the applicant saying to us, we're going to provide 172 residential units, 108 new ones, because we know you've got hundreds and hundreds of people on your waiting list. And we have to try and square that with the needs of the local residents and take into their concerns. So I'm still unsure why we can't just leave it. I'm still unsure why we can't just leave it on the table and go back to the applicant and say, tweak it, do whatever you need to do to ensure that it meets the concerns of the people who live in the area, as well as helps us as local councillors to help the people who are on our waiting list. I just don't understand why any legislation would stop us from doing that. If there is legislation which says we can't do that, I would like to know what it is, please.
I believe that's already been explained, that we have to discuss the application before us.
That's enshrined in legislation, looking at Andy Hearn, for example. That's what the law says, is that right?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Chair, the law is quite clear on it. The remit of the committee is to determine the application before it. It is possible to defer, for example, for a site visit or an amendment, but not in this instance where the concern is in relation to the scope of the application before you. That steps outside the role of the planning committee. That's been answered by myself, by the planning manager. I don't really have anything further to comment on that. Thank you, Chair. Did you hear me when essentially I believe it's outside, to try to go outside the scope of the application before you is not the remit of the planning committee. Remit of the planning committee is to make the decision based on the application before you. That's the advice I've given, and that's the advice also from the planning manager. Thank you, Chair. I believe I've answered that on a number of occasions now.
I think it's time for me to ask my two questions. The first one is, the pump track is parallel to Cole Avenue. What protection, what separation will there be between the pump track and the road, which is very busy and quite fast?
Sorry, I'll just get to the drawing. Okay, so there is a fence, a barrier along here to try and dissuade to keep away pedestrians from the pump track, and also to add to provide some separation to Cole Avenue, and there'll be planting along there as well. So there is a fence coming along. You just about see that the red line coming along there.
Thank you. And my other question is, it's hoped to plant lots of new trees. The city has seen quite a few trees planted in the last few years, many of which struggle.
Sorry, Chair, can I just check?
It's about the trees. How much maintenance will the trees have? He's gone. How much maintenance will the trees have? I understand normally it's a 5-year replacement agreement. Is that the case here? And will they be watered regularly and so on?
Yeah, there is a 5-year maintenance. That's condition 44. We have got a management plan submitted with the application, which includes details of watering, etc. But you'll see condition 45 is asking for a landscape management and maintenance plan for our agreement. So we'll get a full maintenance plan, and that will include watering when it's going to be watered. The maintenance plan that we've got is suggesting that they'd be watered once a week for the first year. But we've asked for a detailed management plan that we will have a look and control under condition 45.
Thank you. And one last question. Are you able to tell me what the distance is between the existing shop, which is outside the red line, and the proposed retail area?
I think, Claire, are you measuring it, are you, Claire?
I will try to measure it.
Claire's
for you
trying
now.
to measure it now.
If we say it's approximately where the current mugger is now off Scott Avenue, that is 215 metres if you were going directly across the space rather than down and across the footpath.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions. So I think we've finished questions. Oh, Councillor Lewis? Sorry? We're going into debate, but you are still able to ask questions if they are to the point. Who would like to start? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is a toss-up. There's no question about that, because I think for the new residents coming in, there might be some big improvements and all the rest of it. But I think for the residents who are actually there, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. I mean, the planning officer said that I know the parking, it's an under whatever, and it's going to be fine and all the rest of it. No, it won't be. That's why I asked about the shops. If you get a Tesco Express in there, they're going to park everywhere and go in from everywhere. That shop there will go bankrupt because everybody will go to Tesco Express. You know, there's no question about that. And so after it's been, 18 months coming up with these plans? A lot of deliberation, I get that. The loss of amenities for the residents who are actually there, and the imposition of this design, whilst might be happy in a greenfield site with nobody round it and all the rest of it. It's just not right. It really isn't right for the people who are actually still there. And I will be voting against it, definitely.
Would anybody like to go next? Councillor Tracy.
Yeah, we as you all know, like the post office in Podsmead, and they just opened the fish and chip shop again. Blah blah blah. But when people pull it, you can't get cars up and down that narrow, right? You know where the hub and everything is. But anyhow, I won't go from there. But in my way, I think there's too many houses. Too many houses in a small space, and you know, high rise, low rise, and I've seen these homes go up before. They look lovely at first, and they deteriorate in 2 years, and you know, and there's no continuity in keeping it up together, like landscapes and everything else. And I'm a bit worried for the children as well. It will be moving into there, so I think, committee, that I can't believe that all these houses have been squeezed in, and there's no flair in them. No, you know, like corners, like Bedford Court, whatever flats and all that. They got a nice bit there on the field by Tennyson Avenue and all along there.
You mentioned Abbeymead.
No, Tennyson Avenue. Yeah. And I just can't believe that in a small space, all these houses going. And to me, they're not houses. It's going to look like the army barracks to me in a nice way. I know we need housing. And we've had this when we move people out of houses before, but really they got first option of moving back in. So those spaces are already taken. You know what I mean? So, you know, you've got to think about that. Swings and roundabouts, isn't it? But there are a lot of objects and everything else, you know, standing in. And I must admit to the officer who wrote this, you know, it's absolutely wonderful what you put in there and all the questions you've asked, and thank you so much. But I just a bit worried, you know, with the structure, the presentation, the tightness, refuge, washing, stuff hanging over the rails and everything else. So in a way, I'm not happy with this. I need just something else to persuade me. But there's too many houses and high-rise in a small space to me. Thank you.
Councillor James.
Chair. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I'd just like to say, countering that we've heard from the officers that these satisfy the distance apart for the vast majority of the dwellings. We've heard from highways that they cannot have a strong objection to it on the grounds of traffic. This is providing social housing for Gloucester and regenerating a part of Gloucester that is one of the most deprived wards in the city. And I don't see that we can turn it down on grounds such as that. I agree that the loss of the open space is regrettable, but there will be quality open space within this development, and I would urge people to support it.
Fine.
Councillor Castle.
I agree, yeah, we do need affordable homes, but we need to get it right. And things can't be rushed through, and we need to know, you know, all the facts. My thing is we're having all these new homes, and then it's going to put pressure on local schools. Gloucester City Homes aren't paying any contributions towards the primary and secondary schools. And the county council say that they can't guarantee places for these children. So how far are these children going to have to go at the end of the day to travel? Thank you.
Councillor Gravels.
Whether anybody seconds me or not, sorry, right side of the speaker. Whether anybody seconds me or not, I'm going to vote that we defer this for a site meeting and use some of that time to talk to City Homes about some of the issues that were raised. Also talk to Gloucestershire County Council about the points that the Sheriff has just made. I think there's more work to do. I think if we lose this opportunity to get 172 new homes, we'll regret it. But I also think we've got a duty of care. That's an awful phrase I don't like using because I'm not quite sure. I do know what it means. But we need to look out for these people as well, people who live locally. Seb was trying to do that. He's not in my party, but he was trying to look out for local residents. So we've got a tough job. We've got to balance that against the need. And I've formally moved that we defer this. We can defer it because I checked with the legal guys. We can defer this for more information and have a site meeting.
Make a thing. I'll second you.
Good, do it. I've got a seconder, by the way.
You've finished. So we have a motion, we need a seconder and a vote. The seconder needs to be the seconder, not the proposer. Right, thank you.
That's Councillor Gravels proposing and Councillor Tracy seconding a deferment.
If I may, there needs to be a valid planning ground to defer the matter. If that can be put forward by the proposer, please.
So the issues that the sheriff was raising. So we have several issues that we're deferring from site visit and also to consider these other issues which have arisen during this meeting this evening. I've got a seconder.
Put that to the vote then. All those in favour of deferring this decision, raise your hands. And that motion is lost. So we go back to the debate on the proposal in front of us. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, on the point you raised, if you're unhappy with it as it is, we should refuse it, and then they can ask them to resubmit with amendments or why we give our reasons why we don't like it as it is. We don't just defer things infinitely. Anyway, on the whole, I think the plans are generally good. I am in support of the majority of it. My main issue is with Site 2. I think the loss of the open space is too much. I think as well, I have concerns about highways. I know you said that there's been various studies. I know in the area, I can't get it past my head that Scott Avenue won't become an absolute jammed up car park. I think if this were to come back and in Site 2 where the plaza is, if the houses behind the plaza weren't there, and that was left as open space for, say, a football pitch, rugby pitch, what have you, I think I'd generally be in support of this. But I think as it stands, I can't support this in its current format because it's too much loss of open space for the community.
Anybody else? Councillor Riederholm.
Yes, it's not like me to object to something regarding cycling, but I cycle through Tewkesbury Borough Council fairly often, and there's a skate park there. In summer, a lot of cars are parked on the pavement to bring people to that skate park, and the same will happen with this BMX track. It's a one-of-a-kind facility planned for the city. To put it right next to Cole Avenue is just going to attract a lot of people who will drive there with their BMXs in the boot, and that is not going to help the residents of Podsmead.
Councillor Tracy.
I mean, it will create a lot of noise. It will create people sitting round there. And would it be locked off at night when they're having a fag and a drink and whatever? And it's not fair on the residents as well. Why a BMX site? I just don't know. It'd been better if they had a crazy golf.
Anybody else, please? Any other comments? Any more debate? I've got a few points I'd like to make, just observations. I don't like the look of those apartment blocks. The uniformity of the roof line, I think, makes it look like a prison. I'm not so worried about the loss of open space because I think at the moment the open space is undefined, undesignated, and I think it will be replaced by better spaces which will have more of a focal point. They'll have a purpose. People will be able to identify where they want to go, whether they want to sit and chat with friends under the trees, or the children playing, or lads kicking a football around, whatever. So the loss of open space doesn't worry me. The pain for the existing residents can't be got around, but most of what's being lost is in terms of the buildings coming down. They're poor quality buildings, and one day we would have to bite the bullet, and if we don't bite it now, when will we do that? So I think they're my observations at the moment. Does anybody else have anything to say?
I'm sorry to keep coming back with this. And I like you, tailing on from what you said, Chair. I mean, there's going to be a lot of construction people up and down those small roads. You're never going to get anywhere. And you know, it's got to be well planned out, wheel washing, everything. And I just don't know how they're going to cope with it all. But there again, if they don't do another building, come in. I just thought this could be a flagship for city-owned. You know, really make it stand out, have it bright, in in everything. Make different designs. It would have been nice, a really good flagship for city-owned, and they come up with that.
Are there any more comments? Are we ready to move to a vote? I think we maybe are. We're going to vote first of all for those supporting the scheme. If you can raise your hands if you are supporting the application as it... Sorry, I can't... I'm proposing first the support of the application to start with. Is that all right?
So, yeah, if you propose something to approve, then you, because you've got the options, you can propose in a second, a debate, and then a vote. Yeah.
So we come to the vote and we need a proposer to approve the application as it is before us, and we need a seconder. Who will do that? Councillor James will propose. And who will second it? Councillor Barmier. Okay, so if you can vote to...
If I may, Chair, is there any further debate on this matter? No, thank you.
So if we can raise our hands if we are in support of the application going ahead, please. Councillor James. Councillor. I think that's only 2 in favour. And now those against, 2, 3, 4,
5, 6 against.
6.
6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6.
So,
no, yeah.
Once you've got the vote, can we have that?
Yeah. So, yeah. So if we can count the vote, Chair.
So we have 2 in favour and I believe 6 against.
So that resolution fails.
The resolution fails. And 1 abstention. Councillor Gravel's abstained. So that concludes.
So that resolution fails.
The resolution fails.
A point has been raised for the reasons for the refusal. Can members confirm it's the reasons as stated in the officer report? Thank you. So for the other alternate, which is to refuse, we need a proposer and a second.
Councillor Reader-Hold to propose and Councillor Lewis to second.
Can members confirm there's no debate? To the vote, please.
Can please vote for refusing.
As for the grounds, Thank you.
The application fails. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time with this particular item. Is everybody all right not to have a comfort break to proceed to the next item? Yes.
Everyone in the gallery is only
We're moving on to the application for Winny Croft Lane. Can I ask the Senior Planning Officer to introduce the report, please?
Apologies, Chair, if I may, through you, just for the record of the meeting. You'll note that we're down a number of members. That's due to personal circumstances and feeling unwell. We are still quorate and able to proceed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Principal Planning Officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd first like to bring to the committee's attention the late item material pursuant to agenda item 6 at Winny Croft before you this evening, which includes an updated resolution, updated plans reflected in an update to condition 2, additional representations that have been reported. The additional material also clarifies and expands on the officer assessment and position regarding section 245 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act and the application of policy SD7. And finally, the additional late item material also sets out that following dialogue between the Council and the lead local flood authority, condition 4 from the agenda relating to this item can be deleted as it duplicates condition 8 relating to surface water drainage. And that concludes that matter in terms of the late material.
Thank you for that.
Moving on to the presentation this evening. Item 6 of the agenda relates to land at Winny Croft and seeks planning permission for the residential development of 180 dwellings, vehicle, pedestrian and cycle access and associated works. The master plan for the application is displayed before the committee on the image. In the first instance, it is important to understand the background and context to this planning application. In this respect, the planning application was originally presented before committee in June 2023 with an officer recommendation to refuse. However, it was deferred until the next committee agenda in July 2023 to enable progress in respect to technical information, including planning obligations and agreement in respect to heads of terms and other matters. It thereafter returned to Planning Committee in July 2023, where members of the Planning Committee resolved to grant planning permission subject to conditions and the completion of a Section 106 legal agreement, as members at the time in the reported minutes resolved that the adverse impacts of the development did not outweigh the benefits of the application, including through affordable housing delivery. When this planning application was presented to committee in July 2023, the report at the time noted that the scheme would deliver 76% of affordable housing provision on site. And in practice, as the report notes in this case, this generally requires legal mechanisms to be secured under Section 106. As such, the reason for returning this application to committee relates to the approach to securing the additional unsecured quantum of affordable housing, which amounts to 56% of the homes proposed, with the policy compliant level of affordable housing at 20%, which will be secured as standard through a Section 106 legal agreement. In this respect, it is the conclusion of officers that the additional 56% of affordable homes cannot be bound by a planning legal mechanism, that this would be at odds with Home England Strategic Partnerships contract with the Bromford Housing Group. This is all set out in this evening's report, and therefore officers consider that the options for doing so by way of inclusion within the 106 and the legal agreements has been exhausted since this application was presented at committee in July 2023, which is why this application has been returned for consideration at planning committee, the matter pursuant, of course, to affordable housing. As such, primary consideration must be given by the committee in the planning balance to the 20% of the policy compliant level of affordable housing that is being proposed. These affordable dwellings will be delivered without recourse to public subsidy, and they will constitute what is known as the secured provision of affordable housing. And the word secured is used because it is 20% of affordable housing which will be secured through the appropriate Section 106 legal agreement, which is usual procedure, and is the basis on which weight in the planning balance should be attributed by the committee. That is the background, and I will now run through a brief number of slides just by way of a quick recap of the application, which members considered and resolved to approve in 2023. This slide shows the general area of the site, and it's not the red line boundary. This image is basically an approximate site location illustrating the M5 motorway boundary and Winny Croft Lane to the east and west of this image, respectively. The next image illustrates the moated area, which is the scheduled ancient monument, with access and drainage attenuation in the approximate northwest of the plot. Sample elevations of the scheme, including floor plans, are illustrated on the image before members this evening in this next image. And again, the same here. I'll cycle through a couple of slides which also show indicative elevations and floor plans in terms of the design. This next image is a snapshot of the street scene elevations, while this next image is site sections, which illustrates a restrained scale and design, which again was considered by committee in 2023. These next slides before the committee are site photos to illustrate the site and its context, to remind you about the relationship between the site and its surroundings. One observation that will become apparent throughout these slides is the well-screened nature of the site through natural vegetative cover. This image shows the approximate location of the scheduled ancient monument, the moat, in the centre of the screen. Again, you see the coverage by way of the hedgerows and tree coverage. These next views are from a bit further afield, including from the car park of the golf club, looking southeast across to the national landscape, and again in this image here. It is important to note that the applicants have provided a memorandum of understanding which accompanies the committee report. It's set out in the appendix, which sets out the applicant's position regarding the secured and unsecured amounts of affordable housing delivery, and their intentions and mechanisms regarding the additional unsecured element of affordable housing provision on the development in excess of the 20% policy compliant element, which will be secured through the 106. Again, 20% is secured through the 106. It is also important to note that the committee report and the late item material together set out the other updates post-2023 committee resolution, which include but are not limited to matters pursuant to landscape impacts, provision of a monument management plan which has been worked up with regards to Historic England and the archaeological officer, ecology, drainage, advancement of the Section 106 legal agreement, the use of planning conditions. In addition, the proposal seeks to further the duty under Section 245 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act in respect to the national landscape. This is again set out in the report and the late item material, along with any other representations that have been received, which have also been reported. Ultimately, the recommendation will be following. In conclusion, the application has been considered in the context of the policies and guidance referred to within the committee agenda. The proposal is consistent with those policies and guidance in terms of design, materials, the highway safety implications, impact on amenity of neighbours and the local area, and sustainable development, and ultimately in terms of the provision of affordable housing to meet a need for housing nationally and locally. Any adverse impacts as laid out in this report would not outweigh these benefits, whether significantly and demonstrably or through standard planning balance. As such, the proposal is therefore considered to be acceptable, and accordingly it is recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions set out in the agenda and also in the late item material, and subject to the completion of a Section 106 legal agreement. And this concludes the officer presentation for this item.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Amanda Swan to come and address the committee, please? You have 5 minutes. Would you like a 1-minute warning?
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm Amanda Swan, Regional Director for New Homes at Bromford. Bromford Housing Association is part of the Bromford Flagship Group. We're one of the biggest housing associations in the country. We're the third biggest builder of affordable homes in the UK and the biggest builder of socially rented homes within England. Our purpose is clear: to invest in homes and relationships so that people thrive. As a social landlord, we become a long-term stakeholder in our communities, unlike traditional house builders. Bromford's approach is customer-focused, as demonstrated by our neighbourhood coaching model. Our neighbourhood coaches are there to support customers and neighbours connecting with local resources and building a friendly, resilient neighbourhood. Gloucester is a key area for us. We've built strong partnerships with your officers and are committed to being a long-term delivery partner for the city. That's why we've already invested in sites that will deliver up to 630 new homes here in the next 5 years, bringing around £160 million of investment into the local economy. These much-needed homes will bring Bromford's housing stock in Gloucester to close to 2,000, making us the city's second largest social landlord. We're proud to be delivering new homes in Matson, a priority area for regeneration in the Gloucester City Council's corporate plan, and we're positive and passionate about working with the local community to support that vision. You may remember this application from July 2023, and despite a recommendation to refuse, members rightly saw the benefit of 76% total affordable housing and voted to approve, subject to the agreement of the 106. Since then, we've worked closely with your officers to address the outstanding concerns and move the scheme forward. As mentioned, a monument management plan in place with the City Archaeologist and Historic England, securing the long-term protection and upkeep of the historic moat through legal agreement, offering far greater certainty than if the site were left undeveloped and unmanaged. Ecological benefits, including a Great Crested Newt district licence application, which has now been made, and progress against the 106 agreements with both the City and Council, which are pending your support this evening. We're grateful for the officers' collaboration and support in the run-up to this committee, and very pleased to have received the recommendation for approval. Since the last committee, the key challenge as outlined has been how to secure the additional affordable housing. With all 76% bound into the Section 106, we are unable to grant fund many of those homes, which could make the scheme unviable. This issue was presented by officers to this committee in January and again in May this year, and is believed to be understood by members. It's the reason why this application is back at committee today. What this doesn't mean is that we can't and won't deliver the affordable housing at this scheme that's been committed to. It's been proposed, and we've agreed with your officers, that the 20% policy amount of affordable housing be secured via the Section 106, and the additional delivery of the 56% is set out in the Memorandum of Understanding between Bromford and Gloucester City Council. The standard of homes will be regardless, despite the mechanism under which they are secured, and neither our customers nor the local authority will be able to tell the difference from a rent, management or maintenance perspective. Furthermore, we're a strategic partner of Homes England, delivering a major grant programme backed by the recent announcement of £39 billion investment and a 10-year rent settlement. We're one of their most trusted and influential partners. Therefore, members should have no doubt that Bromford will deliver 76% of this scheme as affordable housing. And as an affordable housing association, that's what we do. We're financially strong, a strategic partner to Homes England, and we deliver on our promises. We want the council and local communities to trust us on this site and every future site in Gloucester. This site has strong local support, and we're grateful for Ward Member Councillor O'Donnell's support throughout the application. We're also grateful for the positive backing we've received from the community and neighbourhood through the group. As has been mentioned, Gloucester faces an urgent shortfall of affordable homes, especially larger ones, which this site provides, and predominantly 4 and 5 bedroom properties, of which there are 311 households waiting. This scheme also provides adapted and adaptable housing, again, which there are a number of households on the register. And this development provides 5 new wheelchair accessible homes. I want to end by emphasising Bromford's long-term commitment to Matson and the wider city. We're excited to bring forward this attractive, green and sustainable place to live, helping to meet Gloucester's affordable housing need. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move to members' questions. Would anybody like to begin? Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Can you tell me what percentage of the houses will have cladding on them? Oh, sorry. But what percentage of the houses will have cladding on them?
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have the percentage with me, but what I can say is that we have a materials condition which will which is condition 10 of the agenda. We should be able to secure further details of that to come forward.
I know sometimes they have them on the corner of a road so people know where they are. I can't see them in the plans at all.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at a satellite image of the moat, it appears that there's a public footpath around it. Is there a public footpath on the land, and will it be accessible to members of the public?
Thank you, Councillor. There is a public footpath on the land. The public footpath is incorporated in the new designs, which will run along the western site boundary. There's also been since the time of the previous committee, there's also been a monument management plan, which has also come forward, which seeks to protect the monument itself.
Councillor Tracy.
Yeah, just following on about the moat and the monument, yes. So because we were on about drainage before around there, so that's obviously all sorted in your report. Will that be fenced, please?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, the fencing actually forms part of the monument management plan. It's one of the key criteria to ensure preservation of from the moat from indirect and direct activities from the residential development. It's been worked up in collaboration between Historic England and the city archaeologists. So there will be fencing which will replace the existing around that moat. Yes, thank you. Drainage is actually the LLFA and the Environment Agency have raised no objections to this development. One of the items on the late item paper relates to the removal of condition 34, which is already covered by condition 8 in relation to drainage. But actually the monument management plan also refers to drainage and the ways of control and mitigation to safeguard.
And has sheep still got rights to roam?
Yes, that's correct. There is actually a couple of minor amendments that came in post 2022 committee. So there are actually measures in place to ensure that they have that exactly.
I know we had a bit of a dispute over highways, and that's all sorted out now, isn't there? The access from the houses going along the lane, coming out from that development, going on to the lane that goes parallel into. There's one long lane, isn't there, from coming off the main road going back.
Sorry. There were no highways objections.
No, I know before, I'm just checking that with the situation.
The situation remains the same. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Councillor Harris.
Yeah, you mentioned about sheep still having the right to roam around. Just looking at points 11.11, and in the bits on there, it mentions gated enclosure in the northern area to prevent sheep roaming into the site. So I'm just wondering, can they go in or can they not?
So
It's my understanding that the common land changes that have been proposed through the application as set out in the report will offer an element of roaming in that section of the site, but not across the site more widely.
Councillor Gravel.
Thank you. Talk to you sometime tomorrow about roaming, because we get sheep wandering, roaming from Winny Croft Lane all the way into Abbeydale and Podsmead, and it's driving people absolutely nuts. We've spoken to highways, we've spoken to everybody. So if you're an expert on roaming, we'll be talking in the next 48 hours. Okay.
I think we're getting off the subject really now. Anybody else with questions? Councillor Wiederholt.
I understand that 20% is covered by Section 106 and the remaining 56% is covered by a covenant. How legally binding is that? And is there anything that could happen in the future that would suddenly remove that 56%?
But you may assist. So the application before you is the guarantee of 20%. Policy compliant. That's the application before you, and that's what you need to consider. In relation to the additionality, that's not enforceable. That's governed under the MOU, and that is an unenforceable promise from Bromford that says if we get the funding, it's a very transparent and it's a very open way of addressing it. If we get the funding, we'll do it. If we don't get the funding, obviously we can't do it. So the report also covers another element of security, and that's through a transfer of a parcel of land that the council owns, and it's an overage mechanism whereby it will be sold at a discounted rate, and then on the understanding that that housing, additional housing will be built. If it's not, the penalty is Bromford will pay the full price. So that's the way that it's been addressed. So before you today is the 20%, and that's what's really important. It's a very transparent report, and members need to be made aware of that when they make the decision. Thank you, Chair.
More questions? We move into debate now. Councillor Tracy?
Yeah, I do like the design. I like the space, and what I like about it, how matures, is it blends in with Matson Lane and the surrounding, a bit of a country look to it too. And I think enhance that end of the lane too. But yes, that's what I like to see. Bright. Good old Bromford.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, it's chalk and cheese, the last one and this one. This is well designed. It's preserving an ancient monument. It's going to hopefully provide 70%. But, I mean, we can't hold them to that, but they're doing their best. And if you look at those houses, they look a darn sight better than the ones they were proposing in Podsmead. You know, these are proper houses in a nice area, and I think it would be a pleasure to live there. Not that I'm going to, I'm questioning that. So, this will get me no thumbs up, no problem whatsoever. It's just a good designed and well thought out.
Councillor Wiederholt?
Thank you, Chair. I cycled on Winny Croft Avenue recently, Winny Croft Lane. It's very badly deteriorated due to the current building works in that area. I assume that we've got something in place that will make sure that once this, if it goes ahead, and in fact the current building works are complete, that the road will be returned to a good state, because at the moment it's pretty horrible to drive or cycle along there.
Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Not at the moment. I think we can probably move to a vote. Do we have a proposer for the application? I think that might be Councillor Lewis, and seconding Councillor Tracy. Thank you. All those in favour, raise your hands. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. We're not quite finished. Councillor Gravels. We have to approve the delegated decisions. Are members content to approve the delegated decisions? Yes, we are. Unanimously, I believe. Thank
Show
you.
of hands, yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Unanimous, yes.
The next meeting will be Tuesday, the 5th of August. The meeting now comes to a close. The live stream ends.